Here's my question for you, Joey. God says, "Vengeance is mine," saith the Lord. But after your rather near-death experience, you kind of came back as with a vengeance this season. Do you think you might be moving in a little blindly?
Oh yeah, I could definitely agree and attest to that. I mean, we got to remember this character, he suffered a very traumatic brain injury.
Hmm.
The way that it was put to me is he's dealing with like a CTE. And, this is the 90s, so there's no proper diagnosis for it, especially for a black man from Southside Jamaica, Queens, who happens to be a drug kingpin. He's definitely not getting looked at properly. You know what I mean? So I think the injury has definitely clouded his judgment, his mind. It's affected his character. You know what I'm saying? We know you need to be a charming, charismatic, and calculated person. Now, while I feel like a lot of those traits are still inside of him, we see him operating from a different side of his brain, where before it was more logical. This time around, it's more from an emotionally charged place, right? Like, I think he's the personification this season of feelings being interpreted as facts. And
Uh,
he,
Mm.
jumping to the conclusions a lot. So blind is one of many things. I think that he's moving in this direction in this season.
Excellent.
I want to piggyback on that because does that mean we saw Ronnie went scorched earth last season? Does that mean that Unique is going to be Ronnie 2.0? Like it's going to be turned up a notch?
Well, we're just gonna have to see. You know what I mean? What I can say right now is that he is definitely convinced himself that all parties were involved in his demise. You know what I mean? Not just Ronnie, but he believes that they all conspired against him and they kind of worked together because it benefited them all to get him out the way. And I think he's acting from that perspective. And yeah, let's see where it takes it. You know what I'm saying? Once he fully recovers, who knows what he'll do or what he'll continue to do. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Well, this which I think took everybody off kilter this last season with you and Rock and this love relationship. And now we see in season four, there was a possible, well, not possible, a termination of your child. Is that going to have any other type of influence on Unique? It's can I expect a softer palette with Rock? Or are you still going after her with guns blazing?
Well, hypothetically speaking, I would like to believe that if he was able to have a conversation with Rock, she could put it in a way for him where it's like, yo, it's like, I ain't your enemy, dude. But again, he's not in his right mind. So who knows if that conversation were to happen, like, would he believe it? You know what I'm saying? And then will he dig a too deep of a hole for himself where the relationship can't even be reconciled by the time said conversation happens, right? Because right now he's like to your point, he's blind. He's in a blind fury, and if he continues down that road, he's gonna he's gonna make a lot of bad impulsive decisions that could, prevent any type of reconciliation from happening. So we're just gonna have to see the way it plays out, but I'd like to believe that there's a world where that reconciliation can happen for them, and where they can get back on the same playing field, because I think Unique and Rock together was a strong force. You
Yes,
know what I mean? And I think it's a force that a lot of people would want to see more of.
yes, indeed.
And I know we got to wrap soon, but I just want to piggyback on that because that was part of my question. Because I had a back and forth with some other folks who believe that you and Rock were just playing each other. And I said, no, they really have feelings for each other. You know, you can tell from Rock. And then just when you were trying to piece everything together in, you know, episode 401, you can see that you felt betrayed. So the feelings are real between you and Rock, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'd say I can't speak for Rock's character, right? But I'd say for Unique, I think, yeah, I think the feelings were real because I think that their connection came from a sense of relatability. You know what I mean? It's like they were able to see each other because they sat in similar positions in their lives. They're the heads, right? You know what I mean? So Unique understands what it's like for Rock, and Rock understands what it's like for Unique, and they're able to connect in a way where they can't find that connection elsewhere, right? You know what I'm saying? It's like, yo, you see me, I see you, and I think for Unique that was a very real thing, and like you could see in 401, to your point, you know, there was a sense of betrayal, which speaks to the point of like, yo, I love for this person, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we got to wrap it up, and but I do want to go by telling you that you're one of my favorite. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate you.
you play that. No, man. I mean,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
seriously, you are one of my favorites. So, much luck in this season, and
Mm-hmm.
thank you for this interview.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
we were heartbroken when we thought you died last season. So
Indeed.
glad you're back.
Well, like he said in season 2, if the body don't show up, he ain't dead. So
Okay.
it played out. You know what I mean? It played out. But thank
Thank
y'all.
All
Appreciate y'all.
right. Have a good day.
Oh, there they go.
Hey, hey, MeKai. Hey, Sasha. How are you both?
Good. How about you?
It's good
Fine,
to see you
thanks.
both as well. Definitely. Well, you want to kick it off, Tiff?
Sure.
Okay.
MeKai, I'm coming straight to you.
Uh-oh.
Um, I wanted to ask you about Kanan because I know he has been trying his best to stay away from Rock. But this season, we see that you guys are partners. I'm like, are you doing it out of necessity or you don't have a choice? Like, what is the rationale?
I think it's a bit of I've rationalized it as a bit more of like a leverage move, like as much as, I mean, you got to look at like he just lost his father due to his mother. You know what I'm saying? I think as angry and hurt as he is about that, I think they both see that as an in some sort of way. Like I think Kanan is now using this to further establish himself as an individual, but Rock more so sees it as a chance to reconnect after completely ignoring the fact that she just took this thing away from him. So I think Kanan is using it as a stepping stool for him. It's the next piece of his plan, of his puzzle.
Okay.
Sasha, I have one for you.
Please.
Season 4 seems to be looking up to be a season of vulnerability for relationships. I may be looking at my crystal ball may not be as clear as it should.
You're right. You're right. You're right.
But that's what I see in my ball. So tell me about that.
I mean, look, I think first off, you're right, and I appreciate you saying that. And I'm impressed because I think you've only seen the first couple episodes, and I think, there's not we definitely deliver on what you just described, but I feel like it's later in the season rather than those first 2 episodes. But I guess, hey, great news. There's some inklings of it in the first couple episodes. I think one of the things that we really try to do is humanize these characters. I mean, yes, they exist in this very sort of high stakes world that, this sort of criminal world, for lack of a better word. But, I think we really try to lean into the human elements of these characters and in this family and the dynamics that exist between them all. And so part of that is vulnerability. And what's interesting is, Rock is sort of incapable of being vulnerable. And so everyone around her sort of becomes very vulnerable, And that often happens in real life, when you have a parent or whatever who's sort of insensitive, you become very sensitive, and you also become very sensitive to them. So, I think there is a lot of that in this season. Again, I'm really impressed that you sort of keyed into this. And, look, what we want is people to care about these characters. We really want them to care about these characters. It's funny, I saw Vince Gilligan, who created Breaking Bad. He gave a speech at the WGA Awards last week where he talked about we need to create more good guys. And the world's a bad place. We need more good guys. And by the way, I agree. But what we try to do on this show is, like, you may see some of these characters as maybe bad guys or whatever, but there's pieces of them that are good. No one's ever just one thing. So we try to really lean into the complexity of who these characters are. And that's, hopefully we're pulling that off. We'll see.
Well, I know we have a very short, limited time, but I do see some vulnerability in Patina's character.
Yeah.
I'll discuss that with her a little later on. I wish I had more time to get to it. And sorry, I couldn't answer the question with you, MeKai, but we hope to do this again real soon.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And by the way, when you have that conversation with Patina, she'll have some, because later in the season, there's you see a side of Rock that you haven't seen before, and it's super powerful.
Okay. Excellent. I like
Guys,
that.
good seeing you.
Good seeing you both. Have a good afternoon.
You do the same.
Bye-bye now.
Thank you.
This is Ron Johnson from The Spot Real Talk.
Hello.
And I'm Tiffany from The Spot. How are you?
I'm okay. How are you doing?
Fine, thanks. You look beautiful, by the way.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you.
And that's always probably in your sleep.
I'm tired. I'm tired. It's been a long day, but
I know it has.
But we're going to try to get through this as quickly as possible. But really, we appreciate you being here with us. I was talking with Sascha a moment ago about vulnerabilities in season 4. And it was an interesting question, actually better than interesting. He didn't think I was able to pull that out in the first 2 episodes, but I do see some vulnerabilities. And I told him I'd bring this up with you because there are some vulnerabilities that I see in you that I have not seen before. And I wonder if this will carry through season 4.
Yeah, I think with these characters, we have to constantly challenge. The characters must grow. The characters must continue to hopefully grow and transform and change and have these light bulb moments. And, for Raquel, she has a lot of that. I wouldn't say a lot, but there are more moments of her having to not being able to hide behind the mask, you know what I mean? And having to deal with her emotions just like we all deal with them. I think she's dealt with them in the past, when she was manhandled by the guy at the apartment, coming back to her house and smoking that cigarette, knowing that like her life could have been in danger. I think that's a very vulnerable moment. I think grabbing your son's face at the end of episode 10, season 1, and watching him fire off that gun, knowing what have I done, that's very vulnerable. So I think you've seen Raquel very vulnerable. You don't get to see many moments. I think every time you've seen her with Jukebox, you've seen her be human and you've seen her be very vulnerable. So I love to push back on people who say like, we don't get to see Rock vulnerable. I think you saw her be vulnerable many moments. You just don't pay attention to those. People don't pay attention to those vulnerable moments because they're looking for the this and that. But I think where Raquel has been vulnerable, if you really watch, has been, conversations with Lou, at the end, taking her baby brother to, them driving in the car on their way to what people thought was for him to die, but it's her driving him to get himself help, sitting in that office and being uncomfortable and telling her baby brother, you're my whole heart. That is vulnerability, right? Like there's strength in that, but to be able Rock is not able to live in her vulnerability, because if she lived in that like everyone else around her, she would not be able to operate and be as good as she is at what she does. And because everyone depends on her, she kind of has to be strong. She has to put people in their place. She has to be tough, because it wouldn't get done if she's not. But she's not just tough. She's not just vicious. There are very soft moments. And this season, you get to see her have to not hide those, not put those away, but you have to see her deal with real emotion, deal with her mother finally, you know? So
Good point.
sorry, I had to
No,
get it there.
You're
You know,
feeling it.
You're right though.
You're feeling it. Yeah,
No, you're right
absolutely.
though, because
Great points.
even when you said to Kanan in one of the episodes, like, even if you hate me, I still love you. And I mean, that was a very vulnerable moment and everything. And to get to my question before we have to wrap up really quick, I wanted to ask you about, Rock had a very difficult decision to make with, the termination of the pregnancy and everything. And I wanted to know, would she have made that same decision if she had known that Unique is really alive? Or would it not matter? Because before with Kanan, you didn't want the streets to know that he was a cop's kid. Now, Neek, you guys are supposed to be enemies. So would it have made a difference had he been alive?
I don't think it would have made it. I don't think it would have made a difference. I think Rock sees what kind of mother she is. She sees what this world is, who she is. She's never going to be out of this world. And so to bring a child into this world, she's a woman now, right? When she made the decision to bring Kanan into this world when she was 15, there were things she didn't know. But I think life has happened. I think her life, she knows the only way out, right, that Stefano says is we know where, She told Kanan about the bullet. I think bringing another child into a world that's already so chaotic, and her being the type of person that she is, I just don't know if she could do it. And so I think it wouldn't matter if he were alive or not. I just think she has made the choice to do what she needs to do. And it's her choice to make, that like, I'm not cut out for this, and I wouldn't want to put another child in harm's way because she knows who she is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
That was a great answer. They're asking us to wrap up, so I know you've had a long day. And
this was good, though. Thank you for those questions. We could have talked for a lot more.
It was wonderful talking to you. You look amazing as always.
Thank you so much, guys. Really appreciate your support. Thank you so much.
Well, we appreciate you.